You've seen 9 years of Liberals. Anything they promise you, they had 9 years to get it done. Is your life better? Is it more affordable to buy a home? Are your groceries more affordable? No, after 9 years, it's more expensive to buy groceries, more expensive to buy a home. They've had 9 years, almost a decade, and your life is worse off.
Dude, what is wrong with you?
Jagmeet Singh must be very happy today because today is his pension qualification day. And what a better way to celebrate than by asking Jagmeet Singh if he will finally leave because of the terrible job he's done, and he's virtually destroyed the New Democrat Party.
Let's take a look.
Mr. Singh, every opinion poll in the country seems to show that the NDP are leading support to the Liberals. Should you still be leading at this time, given the fact that you are having problems getting your message out there to Canadian voters, Canadian constituents, and feel you might not be the right person to lead at this time?
I absolutely should be leading, and I will be leading. And there's an important decision for Canadians. We're seeing already some early signs of what Mark Carney and the Liberals are proposing. They're proposing to cut healthcare. We're here at a healthcare conference, literally called SOS, because our healthcare system is in crisis. And Mark Carney is proposing to cut healthcare, to cut the operating budget for our country, which literally means cutting services, which will make it harder for people to get healthcare, will make it harder to get access to a dental care or to a doctor, will make it harder, even dental care as well, will make it harder for people who are waiting so long in an emergency room. And we know that Pierre Poilievre is openly talking about privatizing healthcare and cutting healthcare services. So for Canadians who want to defend healthcare, who want someone who's going to fight like hell to keep it Canadian, not let it become American, like Doug Ford is doing in the province of Ontario, like Daniel Smith is doing in Alberta. If you want to keep it public and universal and defend it and improve it, I'm your choice.
Sure you are. Sure you are,
Maybe he's her choice, but definitely not ours.
He couldn't even get his answer properly, but apparently everybody is going to cut healthcare but Jagmeet Singh.
No, he's going to expand it, and make it so over bloated that we can't afford it.
Well, and again, now I haven't heard Pierre Poilievre speak every single time at every single press conference in the last couple of months, but
you've heard a bunch of it.
I still haven't heard him talk about cutting healthcare. What I've heard him talk about is bringing in the Blue Seal program to actually enhance healthcare, because it would allow potentially thousands of doctors and thousands of nurses that have immigrated here. And, that was the whole point of actually granting their immigration status. But they aren't allowed to work.
And it's not even doctors and nurses who are immigrants. You've all heard the story of my best friend who is a nurse. She lived in Niagara Falls, crossed the border every single day to go to the United States and study medicine, nursing medicine. And they wouldn't let her bring her New York State license back to Ontario. It took her over 6 months. And this was during the pandemic when they were crying for nurses. And the funny thing is, they made her write an English equivalency exam in order to get her nursing license here in Ontario. English is the only language that she does speak. So the whole process is a joke.
Right. And, the NDP, depending on the polls that you are looking at, they're at 11, they're at 14, they're at 16. They're in the basement. That's where they are.
This is rock bottom for the NDP.
Yeah.
I look back to this time last year when they were in the mid-20s, and if they had called an election like we suggested, they could be sitting right now as official opposition. But they blew it. They blew it big time.
Right. And at this point, like they're screwed. They're completely screwed. And I don't think the Liberals would benefit at all from going anywhere near the NDP, because now they're the lepers of the federal political establishment right now. Nobody wants to be around the NDP. That's why everybody's abandoning them in droves.
The conversation is about the 51st statement. That is what is consuming Canadians. And your message isn't resonating. Is it possible that Canadians don't feel that you have the credentials or the ability to be that countering voice to Donald Trump?
Well, we think about what does that mean, the 51st state? When Donald Trump talks about Canada becoming the 51st state, we're here at a healthcare conference. Well, what would that mean for our healthcare? It would mean having American-style healthcare. American-style healthcare is one where you go into bankruptcy. The number one cause of bankruptcies in America is because of a healthcare cost. To have an American-style healthcare system, one that's private, where you spend money out of pocket. Well, the Liberals have let that happen in Ontario. They've let that happen in Alberta. They've let Daniel Smith, who's on the verge of basically selling off all the public hospitals to let them be run by a private corporation. We have Doug Spore that's been privatizing healthcare. So clearly the Liberals can't stand up to the idea of a 51st state when it comes to healthcare. And Pierre Poilievre wants to accelerate that, wants to make us more like America, sell off our healthcare system, privatize it so his buddies can make money. So if you want to defend healthcare, I'm your guy. I'm the only one that's committed to defending healthcare, fighting back against privatization, not letting people profit off the pain of Canadians, keeping it public and defending it, making it better, improving it, making sure you access a healthcare professional, a physician, a family doctor. That's me. That's New Democrats.
You want to talk privatization of healthcare in Ontario? Let's talk. Number one issue that Ryan and I have here in Ontario is the autism program. And Doug Ford did privatize it. They took it from being publicly funded through hospitals. They took all that funding away from the hospitals, gave it to a private entity who is then responsible for doling it out to the families themselves so they can then spend it on privately funded speech therapy or ABA or whatever other therapy that the children need. Now, I'm not saying that this is a good program because it's absolutely awful. Our son has been on the wait list for 5 years. But before that, the wait times under the Liberal government were so long that kids were waiting the exact same length of time.
So this is the issue, is that the Conservatives came in and said, oh, you guys are doing such a terrible job of administrating this, we're going to take all the money back. Because, that was right. The public system was getting all kinds of money for virtually no services put out because families were sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting. And the problem is if you're a parent of an autistic child, the number one thing that you're tired of hearing from all of these doctors is early intervention is key.
And then being stuck on a wait list for 5+ years. It happened under the current provincial Conservatives and it happened under the previous provincial Liberals. And let's not forget, it was the McGuinty and Wynne Liberals who delisted several things from OHIP, including vision care.
Right. So now you have this situation in Ontario where literally over 50,000 families, not kids, families, are now waiting for funding in order to give this essential early intervention care to their kids. And the problem is when you're talking kids with autism, things crystallize very early in terms of behavior, in terms of reactions, and all of the things in between. So if you don't address and develop these kids early, then it's very likely that that damage is going to be permanent for them.
Well, and above that, it's very expensive for families. It's like having another mortgage. And never mind if you have more than one child who's autistic.
Right. Some of these therapies can cost over $100,000 per year.
Per child.
Per child. So this is what these families are dealing with. And both the Liberals and the Conservatives have done an atrocious job. And never mind the fact that during COVID, 50,000 families got a call and a voicemail saying, so all of your therapies are canceled, all your doctors are gone, and you're on your own. Click.
Well, and Jagmeet Singh blames the Ford government. Yeah, absolutely. Blame the Ford government. But don't forget to blame the Liberals before them.
Right. And don't forget to blame the federal Liberals and the federal NDP who was there through that whole mess. So you guys are just as complicit for this as far as we're concerned. So in terms of privatizing, other parts of healthcare in Ontario, news to me, Jagmeet, because I wanted to actually go somewhere to pay for an MRI, to pay for surgery so I could actually get my knee fixed sooner than I was able to. And I wasn't able to. And the problem is there's still people waiting years for surgeries. So we could use a little privatization in Ontario to alleviate the backlog.
We got to make sure people know the choice in this election. The choice in this election is you've seen 9 years of Liberals. Anything they promise you, they had 9 years to get it done. Is your life better? Is it more affordable to buy a home? Are your groceries more affordable? No, after 9 years, it's more expensive to buy groceries, more expensive to buy a home. They've had 9 years, almost a decade, and your life is worse off. And now Mark Carney is talking about doing more of the same. He wants to cut healthcare. He wants to allow our healthcare system to become more like the American system. I think that is wrong. And Pierre Poilievre is going to cut the things that you need, and it's going to cost you. I want to defend what we have and improve it, make it better, and lower your costs.
He's acting like he hasn't been propping up this Liberal government all the way from 2022 until now. And he's still talking about, well, bring Parliament back and we can get something done. Yeah. He's still willing to do it.
All we've heard from Jagmeet Singh is, we've used our power, we've used our power, we've used our power.
And the only time he says, oh yeah, we're going to vote down the Liberals is when the caucus comes out and gets upset with him.
Right. So, you've used your power to implement dental care. You've used your power to implement birth control. Dude, what is wrong with you? You're the one talking about, oh, the Liberals have done all this damage. So you had all this power for the last 4 years and you've squandered it. You've wasted it.
He's pandering to his base. NDP voters are mainly young females, and, well, birth control, free birth control, sounds like an attractive prospect to them now, doesn't it?
Expect that it's already free up until, 25, something like that?
That I don't know here in Ontario. I know some medications for Ontarians under the age of 25 are covered, and some are not, but point being, he's pandering to his base. Birth control is primarily used by women 35 and under, because after the age of 35, there's a whole host of problems that could even lead to death if you use it. So you have to be very careful. Primarily, it's women under 35 who use it, and that's the base that he's trying to pander to.
So grocery prices have gone up massively,
which everybody has to pay for, right?
Under Jagmeet Singh and Liberals, he's done nothing. Housing has skyrocketed, he's done nothing. And jobs are leaving, he's done nothing. Immigration has spiraled out of control, he's done nothing.
Right, all these things that affect literally every single Canadian, and he's focused on birth control, which affects his voter base.
Well, he should comply with all the rules that any other member of parliament or any other elected official should follow, and I expect that will be the case. But what I'm worried about Mark Carney is that he is someone who has made it clear what he wants to do with Canada. He wants to cut jobs. He's talked about cutting the public service at a time when we're up against a potential recession and a loss of jobs. He wants to fire more people, and he wants to cut our health care when we're literally at an SOS conference talking about the emergency in our healthcare system. He wants to cut it. I think those are bad decisions that will hurt Canadians, and I think those are the wrong things to do. Well, I think Canadians are really angry at the threat of Donald Trump and Elon Musk, his billionaire buddy, attacking our sovereignty, attacking who we are, and people are expressing that anger and expressing that frustration. And I think Canadians are really doing an important thing when they say we're not going to buy American, we're going to buy Canadian, and expressing that anger and frustration because we don't want to be like the United States. We don't want to be the 51st state. We want to defend our country and who we are, and that's exactly what I want to do. I want to defend our values. Our values are taking care of each other, taking care of our neighbor. That's what our healthcare system is founded on. The idea that we defend one another. We take care of our neighbor, and you don't have to pay money out of pocket to see a doctor. That's what I want to defend and improve, so we get better healthcare access, less wait times, more access to family doctors. That's what we need.
Considering the polling situation that the Democrats are in, is it still your position to bring the government down in March?
Well, I think that question no longer is relevant anymore, given that Mark Carney has made it pretty clear that, and from what we hear, they're going to be calling an election in a couple of weeks. And so they're going to be calling the election. We're going to be prepared to fight it.
So even the NDP, as we said, this isn't a secret in Ottawa anymore. We said this on the live stream. All the parties now know that there's going to be an election called within about 2 weeks.
Like, our EDA is gearing up. We are getting ready to assemble signs so that they can go into the ground the first day that they are permitted in the ground.
Right. So everyone that's been poo-pooing on the fact that there's going to be an election this year, and all the fearmongers out there that, oh, well, you know, Canadians, you better watch out because the election's not going to happen until 2026.
Or we've also heard never again.
Yeah, or never again. There, you know, the last election was in 2021. No. This is what we've been saying this whole time. The next election is this year. The next election, at the latest, I think we said was going to be May 5th. And it may even be even sooner than that. So
we're looking at April 21st to 28th, I think, is on some literature that we received. So it's possible. So it's coming.
So, you know, Canadians should be asking themselves, everybody who was putting out this 2026 doomsday scenario, I would question why they were telling you that in the first place. So it had no basis in fact. And as Tanya has said repeatedly, the amount of hoops that they would have had to jump through in order to make that happen.
You may as well buy a lotto ticket and expect to win, because that's how improbable it is to have a 2026 election.
Right.
Say, you come and say to you, hey, we need to pass something for terrorists, we need to do something on this. Is there any university or study that would support the Liberals on this? Mr. Carney is really
Well, I'll take that question in two ways. One is that's not something that's on the table. No, there's been no discussions of that nature. And we understand that they want to call an early election. We did say, though, as early as early February, that if the government is interested in getting things done for people, putting in place a package to support workers who might be impacted by the tariffs, bringing in the changes that the public inquiry into foreign interference requested, changes to laws, there are things that we can get done. Let's call Parliament back and get those things done. We still have time to get those things done now. If the government's serious about this, if the Liberals are serious, call their bluff. Let's get it done now. And I don't think any opposition leader would be opposed putting in place a package of supports for Canadians impacted by tariffs. I don't think anyone would oppose that. So put in place those ideas, put them forward and put them in Parliament. If they're serious about making that happen, go ahead. But otherwise, we're preparing for an election that Mark Carney is probably going to call in a couple weeks.
So even he's resigned himself to the fact that Mark Carney is the likely candidate to win the leadership.
Yeah, it's no secret. And the NDP is in panic mode right now, because I think the NDP would love to actually go back to Parliament at this point.
Oh, yeah, because they've bottomed out. They don't want to go to an election where their support is the weakest that it's been in, over a year, I would say?
Oh, yeah, probably.
Maybe even longer.
And here's the thing. They're now left out in the cold. Like, this is what we said would happen.
They're going to lose seats, and they're going to lose seats hard. They were going to lose seats anyways because of how the riding distribution map has been drawn. But, I mean, people are not in large numbers going from the Conservatives to the Liberals. They're going from the NDP to the Liberals. So the NDP are in trouble. They're going to lose seats this election.
They might lose over half of their seats.
They might lose party status. And you know what? I hope they do, because they have been prolonging Canadian suffering for the past year.
They absolutely deserve it. And you can see that, you know, Jagmeet, he's kind of panicking there. He's in panic mode because they're done. They're absolutely done. The NDP is dead. They can't do anything. And you used your relevance to completely squander any opportunity that you had. And Canadians, anyone that was listening to you has given up on you.
Well, and not only that, but you have to keep in mind that not only are the NDP worried about losing support in terms of losing votes, but when you lose support, you also lose money, generally speaking, because you don't have people donating to your campaign, or not in the numbers that you would like anyways.
Right. Now they're donating to the other parties because they don't care about you anymore. So, Jagmeet, the high-speed train has left the station, and you're out in the cold. So I hope you get used to the unemployment line, because that's where you're headed.